Hello, good morning. Today we are going to look LUB and GLB very thoroughly. We are going to do a lot of practice problems. Usually they are relegated as exercises to the students, but we are going to do all those things here because by the time when you go through, you should be very comfortable. In future, if these concepts appear when others are struggling, you should be able to zoom through. This is recorded on Zoom. That's why I use the word zoom through. Okay. Right. Before we go further, let me share the screen. And first of all, the disclaimer. Okay. So I'll just give a minute for the disclaimer because most of you might have seen already. It's only for the newcomers. Let us start the work. Okay. As I said, let's quickly recall if A is a non-empty subset of R, we define what is when do I say alpha is the LUB of A if it satisfies two conditions. One, alpha is an upper bound of A, and two, if beta an upper bound of A, then alpha should be less than or equal to beta. Similarly, we define what the concept of GLB of A. It may or may not exist. Okay. We say a real number beta is a GLB of A if beta is a lower bound of A, and if gamma is any lower bound of A, beta is supposed to be the greatest. Therefore, gamma should be less than or equal to beta. Okay. So I'm not going to repeat. You must have reviewed. So let us start with some very simple observations. We had already shown. Remember that the first example we looked at was an interval of this kind. Either it may be closed, open, etc. Let's not worry about. We said the LUB, call it J, of J is B, and GLB of J is A. Okay. This is an example you should keep in mind for whatever follows. And second thing we noticed is if alpha is an upper bound, some upper bound, not the upper bound, an upper bound, right? And if alpha belongs to A, then we have seen alpha is the LUB of A. Okay, these are examples. Okay, good. Now let's start trying to prove various things. First one is you fix, suppose alpha is the LUB of A. Remember, whenever we said, I'm not saying whether A is bounded above, etc. I'm just, when I say alpha is the LUB of A, it means A is bounded above and there's alpha is the least upper bound of A. Okay. The moment I say alpha is the least upper bound of A, then it follows. If I say Mr. X is the tallest boy of my class. That means Mr. X is also a student of my class. Okay. So let us not make a big deal fuss about such things. Let us understand this. And fix a real number C in R. Then let's look at translate A by C. What is this? This set of all elements of the form C plus X, where X is in A. For example, let us take J equal to, let us say, AB and C to be a real number. What will be C plus J? So this is my AB and I translate by C. C could be here, C could be there, so I can't write it properly, but this is nothing other than the interval C plus A to C plus B. Okay, check this if you want. This is all easy, but you should have in mind. Now, do you see something very interesting? What is the least upper bound of this J? It's B. Now, what is the least upper bound of C plus J? It is C plus B. That is, C is added to the least upper bound of J. Is that clear? So that suggests what we should try to prove is LUB of C plus A is C plus alpha. This is what we want to prove. Right. The proof is easy. Okay. Start with any y in C plus A. Now y belong to C plus A. That means it is of the form C plus X for some X in A. This implies there exists X in A so that y equal to C plus X. Therefore, y equal to C plus X is less than or equal to C. C is less than or equal to C, no problem. But X is less than or equal to alpha because X belongs to A and alpha is the least upper bound, in particular upper bound, right? What does this show? For every y, we have shown that y is less than or equal to C plus alpha. This means C plus alpha is an upper bound of C plus A. Is that okay? Now, what is the next we have to prove? We want to prove this is the least upper bound. So, what is that I have to let beta be an upper bound of C plus A. Yeah. Then what should I prove? I have to prove whether this implies C plus alpha is less than or equal to beta. Is that clear? This is what I have to prove. That's very easy. Okay. Suppose beta is an upper bound. All right. Now start with any y in A. Then as we said earlier, y equal to C plus X for some X. Okay. Right. Therefore, what I know is C plus X is less than or equal to beta. Now, this inequality is true for which X? For all X. Because the, for every X in A, C plus X belong to C plus A. Right? Therefore, C plus X is less than or equal to beta for every X. You understand this? And hence, what do I get? Transfer C to the other side. Therefore, C is X for all X in A, X is less than or equal to beta minus C. So what does this show? This shows beta minus C is an upper bound of A. But what is alpha? Alpha is the least upper bound of A. Therefore, what is the relation between beta minus C? Therefore, alpha should be less than or equal to beta minus C. That implies alpha plus C is less than or equal to beta. So, we have proved this. Yeah? Good. Now, second. Now, whenever I do for LUB, you should also ask similar question for LUB. Suppose beta is the GLB of A and let's look at J. Okay. I want to know whether there is any relation between GLB of C plus A, C and GLB of A. You understand that? Can you find a relation involving these three? In the above, what did we have? We had a relation between C, the GLB of A, and LUB of A and the LUB of C plus A. So similarly, you should do that. It's obvious. I am sure all of you have guessed it. So go ahead and prove. Proof is very similar. Okay, now let's look at the second example. Suppose A is a non-empty subset of B and beta is the LUB of A. Okay, right? And notice that since beta is, let alpha be the LUB of A. Note again that I don't know whether LUB of A exists. I am saying let alpha be LUB of A. That means it is given to me. Then I want to know what is the relation between alpha and beta. Yeah, right. Can you guess? So, so I have a class. Okay, this is a smaller class. Okay, the maximum possible height of my class is, let us say, x centimeters, or let us say beta centimeters, and this is a subset A. This is B, full set. So, what is the maximum possible height for the students here? It should be at most beta. You understand? So, we want to prove alpha is less than or equal to beta, right? That's very easy. Why? Let's start with any x in A. Then since A is contained in B, what do I know? X is also belong to B. But beta is a least upper bound of, sorry, beta is the least upper bound of B. In particular, it's an upper bound of B. Therefore, X is less than or equal to beta. That shows beta an upper bound of A also. Because for every X in A, I have proved it. Therefore, what do I conclude? But alpha is the least upper bound of A. Therefore, alpha must be less than or equal to beta. Is that okay? So something similar can be said, the same, let us keep the same notation. Okay. Now I'm going to assume something else. Let gamma be the GLB of A and delta be the GLB of B. You understand this? Right? Okay. Now again let us look at the picture. This is A, B, this is A. What I know is the minimum possible height for A is alpha centimeters, and the minimum possible height for all students of this class is beta. What can you see? There could be a person who is shorter than this in B. You understand that this is B. You understand? Therefore, what should I expect? Alpha is greater than or equal to beta. Do you believe that? Just think about for a minute, for a second, we will see that. Again, I confused between all gamma and delta. Okay. What I meant is this is gamma, and what I meant here is this is beta, delta. Okay, let us prove that. What do I want to prove? We want to prove gamma is greater than or equal to delta. This is what we want to prove. What does that mean? This is the greatest lower bound of A. You want to see. Again, if you want a simpler example, let us look at it. Let us look at 0 to 5, and a subset is 2 to 4. This is my A and this is my B. What is the GLB of this? Make it even 1. Okay. GLB of B is 1, whereas GLB of A is 2. So what do I want? GLB of B is less than or equal to GLB of B. A. Okay. The proof is very easy. Let us go through that quickly. So if this is true, what does it mean? Gamma is greater than or equal to, that is delta is less than or equal to gamma. Gamma is already a lower bound. Therefore, anything less than that will also be a lower bound, right? So is delta a lower bound? Let us do that. If for every x in A, x belong to B, and delta is a greater lower bound of B. In particular, it's a lower bound of B. Therefore, what's the relation between x and delta? X is greater than or equal to delta. What does this say? This says delta is a lower bound of B. Sorry, lower bound of A. Yeah, for all x in A, x is greater than. Okay. But what is gamma? Gamma is the greatest lower bound of A, but delta is a lower bound. So what does it say? Gamma should be greater than or equal to delta. Do you understand? Therefore, let us record it. This is one thing you should revise. So A is a non-empty subset of B. Then if alpha is the LUB, now let's not worry about alpha beta now. What we want to say is the following: LUB of A is less than or equal to LUB of B, and GLB of A is greater than or equal to GLB of B. This is all we have proved. Okay, go through this, pause, review, and then proceed. If you are viewing this with your friends, I would suggest you discuss this with your friends. Okay, then go to the next. Okay, let's look at another thing, something very similar. Again, I will not keep, should I keep repeating this? I think you will all understand. Let alpha equal to LUB of A and C a positive real number. Then I can look at C times A, right? This is set of all C times X, where X is in A, multiples of all X by C, right? I'm sure that all of you remember in our upper bound saying, if alpha is an upper bound of A, then C alpha is an upper bound of CA. We had already seen that. Now, what do you think I want to claim? I want to claim LUB of C times A is C times LUB of A. This is what you want to claim. Okay? Right. Let us do that. Let's quickly go through that. Let Y belong to CA. Then what do I know? There is an X such that Y is CX. Therefore, for all X in A, right? Let us look at X is less than or equal to alpha, because alpha is the least upper bound. Now multiply by C is positive, therefore multiply by C, then I get Cx is less than or equal to C alpha. Therefore C alpha is an upper bound of C times A. This is okay. We had already seen it. I'm just repeating the proof. Now suppose beta is an upper bound of Ca. What should I prove? C alpha is less than or equal to beta. This is what I want to prove, because I want to prove C alpha is the least upper bound. Therefore, C alpha should be less than or equal to beta, right? Okay, let us prove that. See, for all x in A, Cx belong to Ca. Therefore, what is the relation between Cx and beta? Cx is less than or equal to beta, because Cx beta is an upper bound of C times A, right? But remember, C is positive. Therefore, I can multiply this by 1 by C. That gives me 1 by C times C, that is 1. X is less than or equal to beta by C. The inequality is not changing because C is positive. Otherwise, things may go wrong. You understand this? Very good. So, what do we conclude then? Beta by C is an upper bound. For which set? For A. Because for all x in A, we proved this. Right? Therefore, but alpha is the least upper bound. Therefore, what do I know? Beta by C alpha must be less than or equal to beta by C. Now C is positive, therefore multiply by both sides by C, then I get C alpha is less than or equal to beta. Therefore, I have proved C alpha is an upper bound, and for every upper bound beta of CA, C alpha is less than or equal to B. Therefore, C alpha is the LUB of C times A, right? So it's better to think of it this way without any alpha. LUB of C times A is C times LUB of A, where C is positive, right? So next exercise is similar. If beta is the GLB of A, then I want you to look at sorry, GLB of C times A, C and GLB of A. What is the relation between them? Okay. Second, do you remember we had already seen if alpha is the LUB of A, then minus alpha is the GLB of minus A. This is already seen. Okay. So in view of this, suppose C is negative, right? What should be LUB of, how are you see LUB of C times A should be? Sorry, prove that GLB of C times A is C times LUB of A. When C equal to minus 1, we have proved it. You understand? And for C non-zero but less than 0, the similar argument, but you will see the inequality gets reversed. That's the only proof. That's the only idea you need. So quickly go through this. I request you to pause, review, and then proceed. Check these things. These are all very small exercises. Quickly do that. Usually it should be left to you as an exercise. Now we are in the fourth thing. Let alpha be the LUB of A and beta be the LUB of B. Then we had already defined what is A plus B. We had also shown since alpha is an upper bound of A, beta is an upper bound of B, we have shown alpha plus beta is an upper bound of A plus B. Recall what is this definition? This is X plus Y, X in A, Y is in B. Okay, we had already seen alpha plus beta and upper bound of A plus B. We had already seen this. Okay, right. We want to prove, what do you want to prove now? LUB of A plus B is LUB of A and LUB of B, which is alpha plus beta, right? Let us quickly go through. For all x in A, for all y in B, x plus y belong to A plus B. And x plus y, since x is in A, alpha is an upper bound, x will be less than equal to alpha. Y is in B, beta is an upper bound, therefore y is less than equal to beta. Therefore, this is alpha plus beta. Therefore, I am just giving a proof second time. Okay, very good. Now, let gamma be an upper bound of A plus B. Then I want to prove alpha plus beta is less than equal to gamma. We want to prove this. Okay. I request you to pay attention. There are two different ways I can prove that. Okay. But the first way I'm going to do is a little subtle, and it's very useful in many contexts. Okay, keeping something frozen, and working with something else. Okay, it's like your partial derivative you've seen. If it's a function of two variables, it's something similar. Okay, there is an analogy, but it's okay. Now suppose gamma is null. That means for every x, what happened? Here it is, yeah. So for every x in A and y in B, x plus y belong to A plus B, and hence x plus y is less than equal to gamma, right? Now, learn this well. So in particular, fix some y in B. Then for all x in A, what do I get? X plus y is less than equal to gamma. That means for all x in A, I get x is less than equal to gamma minus y, right? So what does it say about gamma minus y and the set A? For all x in A, x is less than equal to gamma minus y. Therefore, gamma minus y is an upper bound of A. Isn't it beautiful? Good. Now, but alpha is the least upper bound of A. Therefore, what's the relation between alpha and gamma minus y? This should be less than equal to y. Alpha is less than equal to gamma minus y. Is that okay? Very good. Now I'm going to play a trick again. What I'm going to do is the following. This implies if transfer y to this side, y is less than equal to gamma minus alpha. Is that okay? Right. Is that okay? Now I fixed a y and then proved for that y is less than equal to gamma minus alpha. Listen to me carefully. I fixed a y in B, then I proved for that y is less than equal to gamma minus alpha. But then y is arbitrary. I could have fixed any y in B. Therefore, I actually get for every y in B, I get this. You understand? Therefore, what is the relation between the set B and the real number gamma minus alpha? Gamma minus alpha is an upper bound of the set. Therefore, gamma minus alpha is an upper bound of B. But what do I know about beta? Beta is the least upper bound of B. Therefore, beta should be less than or equal to gamma minus alpha. But this implies alpha plus beta is less than or equal to gamma. You see that? We have proved this. Do you understand this proof? It's a very beautiful proof. Okay, go through the proof once again. Okay, but let me indicate another method. Okay, so I had already shown alpha plus beta is an upper bound. Then I want to prove alpha plus beta is the least upper bound. What does it mean? You give me anything less than alpha plus beta, right? Then it's not an upper bound. Remember definition 2 of least upper bound? I'm going to use that. So let epsilon be positive. Okay. Then let us look at alpha plus beta minus gamma, minus epsilon. I'm going to claim this is not an upper bound of A plus B. Okay. The way I want to prove that is, I want to produce a number which is less than alpha. Therefore, it will not be an upper bound for A. Therefore, I will get an element X. And similarly, from this, I am going to produce a number which is less than beta. And since beta is the least upper bound of B, okay, there is an element Y in B, so that Y is strictly greater than that. You understand? Okay. So the way to do that is distribute this. I am subtracting epsilon, right? I will subtract epsilon by 2 from alpha and epsilon by 2 from beta. Or you can also do epsilon 1/4 of epsilon and 3/4 of epsilon from beta. Okay, it's just for fun. So I can write this as f plus this. Yeah. Now this is not an upper bound of A, therefore there is an X which is strictly greater than alpha minus epsilon by 2. And this is not an upper bound of B, therefore there is an element Y which is strictly greater than beta minus epsilon by 2. Therefore X plus Y is strictly greater than alpha plus beta minus epsilon. That means there is an element of A plus B which is strictly greater than this. Therefore, no number less than alpha plus beta is an upper bound of A plus B. But alpha plus beta is an upper bound of A plus B. Therefore, we conclude alpha plus beta is the LEB of A plus B. Pause, review, proceed. Notice that there are two proofs now. Both are very interesting. Just go through that. Okay. Next thing, I have two sets. Okay. Let us assume they are indexed. They are indexed by indexing set I. And B is also indexed by the same indexing set I. And I also assume, okay, for all I, A is less than equal to BI, right? Let alpha, again, as I said, when I said let alpha equal to LUB of A, I am assuming it's bounded above LUB exists, a real number alpha exists as a LUB. And similarly, let beta be LUB of B. What do you think must be the relation between these two? Right? Suppose there are two groups of students, equal number. This also may have 10 students, this also may have, right? Okay. For each student here, okay, first student, there is a student here whose height is greater than or equal to this height. And take another student here, and there is another student here whose height is greater than or equal to the second student, and so on. Now let's look at the maximum height here, and I look at the maximum height here. What do I expect? The maximum height here must be greater than or equal to maximum height here. Do you understand? So we want to prove alpha is less than or equal to beta. Well, proof is easy, right? How do I do that? Now, that means since alpha is the least upper bound, I want to prove alpha is less than or equal to beta. This is what I want to prove, right? So, what do you think? If this is true, we are working backwards. If this is true, since alpha is already an upper bound, I want to prove beta is greater than or equal to alpha. Then what should I conclude? Beta must be an upper bound of A. You understand that? If I prove that, then since beta is an upper bound of A and alpha is the least upper bound of A, alpha will be less than or equal to beta. Can you think through this? Very good. Let us go. Prove that. So start with any x in A, but this x is of the form AI for some I. But what is the hypothesis? For this AI, there is a BI so that AI is less than or equal to BI. But remember, beta is an upper bound. In fact, it is the least upper bound of B. Therefore, what's the relation between BI and beta? Yes. Therefore, what I have shown? For every x in A, x is less than or equal to beta. Yeah, because any x is of this form. This means beta is an upper bound of A. But alpha is the least upper bound, therefore I conclude alpha is less than or equal to beta. This is a very easy exercise. Okay? Okay. Now let's look at one more example. Suppose A is a non-empty subset, of course, of let us say positive reals. And B is also non-empty subset of positive reals. And now let's look at A times B. Okay, this set of all x times y, x is in A and y is in B, right? Let alpha be the LEB of A and beta be the LEB of B. What do you think I would like to claim? First of all, alpha times beta is an upper bound for any element here, because start with any z in AB, z is of the form x times y, where x is in A, y is in B. But remember, x is less than or equal to alpha because alpha is an upper bound for A. And similarly, beta is an upper bound for y. And remember, this is the place we are using. These are all positive numbers. Therefore, notice that alpha must be positive and beta must be positive. You understand why it's positive? Yeah, why? Because there is at least one x which is positive, therefore alpha is greater than or equal to x, but x is greater than 0, therefore alpha must be positive. Do you understand the logic? Similarly, there is at least one y in B and that y is positive and beta is greater than or equal to y, and this y is positive, therefore beta is positive. You understand? So we need the fact alpha and beta are not negative, but they are actually positive. Therefore, this xy is less than or equal to alpha times beta. You understand this? Right. So alpha times beta is an upper bound of AB. Next, I want to know whether it's the least upper bound. Yeah. So let gamma be an upper bound of AB. What do I want to prove? I want to prove alpha beta is the least upper bound. Therefore, what should I show? I should show this. Yeah, right. The trick is, this is why I said there is also epsilon version, but without epsilon, do you remember how I did that? I fixed a y and did something. Yeah, this trick I'm going to use now. Okay, so for every x, in A, y in B, what do I know? Xy is less than or equal to gamma, because xy belong to AB and gamma is an upper bound, right? Now fix y in B. Right? What does it mean? For every x in A, I have x is less than or equal to gamma by y. How can I write this? Because y is positive, there in particular non-zero, therefore 1 by y makes sense. Therefore, I am multiplying both sides of this inequality by the positive number 1 by y, then I get this, right? So what does this say? This says gamma by y for any fixed y is an upper bound of A. But what is alpha? Alpha is the least upper bound of A, therefore alpha must be less than or equal to gamma by y. Right? Is that okay? Now notice that what I have shown, exactly like in the previous case, for I fixed a y and for each y I showed alpha is less than or equal to gamma by y. You understand that? Which is same as saying, since y is positive, this is same as saying y is less than or equal to, or alpha y is less than or equal to gamma. Sorry, let me stick to what I said earlier. Therefore, y is less than or equal to gamma by alpha. Do you accept it? For any fixed y, I have shown this, that y must be less than or equal to gamma by alpha. But this y, I could have taken as any element of y. Therefore, what I have actually shown is for every y in B, I have shown y is less than or equal to gamma by alpha. But what does it say? That means gamma by alpha is an upper bound for the set B, right? But beta is the least upper bound of the set B. Therefore, beta should be less than or equal to gamma by alpha. Remember why? How can I write by alpha? As I said earlier, alpha is positive. It's not simply non-negative. Now alpha is positive. Therefore, I can multiply both sides by alpha. Therefore, I get gamma. So I proved this. Alpha beta is less than or equal to gamma. So I suggest pause, review, and then proceed. Now we are going to look at another interesting case. I have two non-empty subsets A and B of R. What I am given is for every x in A and for every y in B, no matter which x you take and any y you take, x is always less than or equal to y. Again, it may be a good idea to have a simpler picture. Let us say this like this. This is my A, this is my B, right? If you want to think of this, 1, 2, 3, this is 5 to 9. Okay, do you see something very interesting? You take any element here and any element here, this element will be less than or equal to this element, right? Now, what can you suggest in terms of some LUB of AB, GLB of AB, etc.? There is an obvious relation which is striking. Yeah, what is that? Again, if you want, just look at a very common thing. Suppose I have two sets and another set, right? Now, what I know is you take anybody here, the amount he has will be less than or equal to anybody you take here. You understand that? X has some money, but no, you take any Y will have more money than X. And whatever X you take and whatever Y you take, this fellow will have more money than this guy. So what do you think? Now let us look at the maximum paisa wala here. Who has the maximum? Okay, right? Or even you take the minimum, right? Suppose Y min is the guy who has the least amount in this set, and Y max is the guy who has maximum amount here. Now let's X max guy who has the maximum amount in this group. What can you relate? Look at this. The obvious thing is LEB of A is less than or equal to GLB of B. Yeah, the proof is again as usual easy. Let's worry about first. Okay, let's look at it. What is it I want to prove? LEB of A is less than or equal to GLB of B, right? Okay. And this is a very fine way of balancing. Okay, I learned this proof well. Okay, now start with Eddie, fix a y. Again, the same trick. Fix a y in B. Right? What do I know? For every x in A, let's look at that. I fixed a y. Therefore, what do I know? For every x in A, x is less than or equal to y. So what does it say? Y is an upper bound of A. But what do I know about alpha? Call this alpha and call this beta. Okay. What do I know about alpha? Alpha is the least upper bound of A, but y is an upper bound of A. Therefore, what do I know? Alpha is less than or equal to y. Right? Again, the same trick. I fixed a y in B, then I said that alpha is always less than or equal to y. But this y I could have fixed as any element of B. Therefore, what I have shown is for every y in B, alpha is less than or equal to y. So what does it say about alpha? This implies alpha is a lower bound of B. But what is beta? Beta is the GLB of B. And alpha is a lower bound of B. Therefore, what's the relation between them? Alpha will be less than or equal to beta. That is LUB of A is less than or equal to GLB of B. Yeah. Now let's look at the last one. Okay. Now let alpha be the LUB of A. See, we looked at given two sets A and B, we looked at A plus B. Then we consider LUB of A, LUB of B, LUB of A plus B. Assuming all these things exist, then you found a relation. Now what I want to do is something slightly different. You gave me two sets A and B. Then I want to look at the set A minus B. What is A minus B? It is a set of all x minus y, where x is in A and y is in B. Is it okay? Right. I want to look at this set. Okay. Now I want to compare the LEB of A minus B with something, some LEB of A, LEB of A and B, or GLB of A and B, or any cross objects. At present, I don't want to say what I want, but let's just try. Okay, let us look for LEB of A minus B. Okay, let's look at x minus y. Since I want to talk about LEB of, what we want is LEB of A minus B. Okay, notice that I'm just exploring, investigating. I don't want to save the result and then verify that. Okay, you understand? It may be slightly disorienting for you, but bear with me. This is how one creates new results. Okay, so I want x minus y. I want an upper bound. First of all, I want a least upper bound. Therefore, first of all I should find an upper bound. Then, how can I say? I have to say this is less than equal to. If I want to say this is less than equal to, I want to say x is less than equal to something. That means I should have some kind of an upper bound for a. You understand that? Therefore, it's less than equal to alpha. I can write. Now I want to say minus y is less than equal to something. That means y is greater than equal to something. You understand that? See, y is greater than equal to something. That would mean what? You are looking for a lower bound of y. You understand this? Think carefully. Okay, these are the kind of thing in analysis you will use later. Students get confused. Yeah, I want an upper bound for minus y is same as saying I want a lower bound for y. We had already seen it when we compared with LUB of A and GLB of minus A. The same logic. Therefore, if I know beta, okay, is the GLB of B, then what do I know? For every y in B, I know y is greater than or equal to beta. Therefore, minus y is less than or equal to minus beta. You understand this? Right? Therefore, if I can use it here. So, if beta is the GLB, then minus y is less than or equal to minus beta. Therefore, what I have found? Alpha minus beta is an upper bound for the set A minus B. A minus B. Okay, it's not common limit of A in B. Be careful. Okay. Yeah. Is it okay? Just go through that. Right. So I have found this is right. Next, what is that I want to prove? I want to know whether it is the least upper bound. Okay. Question is, this is a question. Yeah. So let gamma be an upper bound of A minus B. Right. Then what do I know? For all x in A and y in B, x minus y belong to A minus B. Therefore, x minus y is less than or equal to gamma. Now I'm sure now all of you know what I'm going to do. Can somebody guess? Yes. You fix x or fix y, sorry, fix y. Okay, if I fix y, what I have shown, for For all x in A, I have shown x is less than or equal to gamma plus y. You understand that? Therefore, this shows gamma plus y is an upper bound of A and alpha is the least upper bound of A. Therefore, what do I conclude? Alpha is less than or equal to gamma plus y. Is it okay? Very good. Next, for I fixed a y, then for that y I showed alpha is less than or equal to gamma plus y, or alpha minus gamma is less than or equal to y. You understand this? Yeah. If I fixed a y, I shown alpha minus gamma is less than or equal to y. That means alpha minus gamma is a lower bound of B, a lower bound, right? But what is beta? Beta is the greatest lower bound. Therefore, what's the relation between alpha minus gamma and beta? This should be less than or equal to beta. But then this implies alpha plus beta is less than or equal to gamma. Yeah? Alpha, sorry. Alpha minus beta is less than or equal to gamma. Okay? So we have proved this. So let us write it as a result. What did you do? You proved that LUB LUB of A minus B is LUB of A minus GLB of B. This is what we proved. Is it okay? I hope this is what we did. Yes. Okay. Right. Now, can you think of some special case? Special case is obvious. Take A equal to B. So let alpha A equal to B with the same notation. Okay. That means alpha is the LUB of A and beta is the GLB of B. Right? Then what did you find? LUB of A minus A. Don't think it is 0 or anything, right? It is any x in A and any y in B. Therefore, it will contain 0, but it will contain lot more elements also. Do you understand that? Okay. For example, take A equal to 0, 1 and B equal to 0, 1. Then what will you get? You start with any element 0 and any element here. So it will be actually minus 1 to plus 1. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. LUB. This is nothing other than LUB of A minus GLB of A. But notice that there's something much more interesting happen. Okay. We are not introduced the absolute value or modulus of a real number or absolute value, but I am sure all of you already know, right? So I want to interpret this result in terms of absolute value. Suppose you start with x, y in A, you see that x minus y and y minus x both belong to A minus A. Because this is also an element of A, this is also an element of A. Therefore, they, right? Now, what is modulus of x minus y? It is nothing other than among these two numbers, take the maximum. Either x minus y is positive or y minus x is positive. Therefore, take the maximum. Right? Therefore, what I have shown, is for any x and y in A, mod x minus y is bounded by, because these are here. Are you following? X minus y minus x belong to that. Therefore, okay, this is less than or equal to alpha minus beta, and y minus x is also less than or equal to alpha minus beta. That means mod of x minus y is less than or equal to alpha minus beta. This is what I improve claim. Yeah, is it okay? Therefore, we have shown that LUB of mod x minus y as x and y vary over A is less than or equal to LUB of A minus GLB of A. Yeah, actually equality holds. Okay, I leave it as an exercise. So we shall stop here. See, now you can see we have done quite a lot of things. Please spend some time, go through. You will never ever have to look back up or about LEB, GLB, or the fancy words like supremum, infimum. You will be very, very confident. In later parts of analysis, whenever these concepts come, you can breeze through. It will be very easy for you. Okay. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Take care. Stay safe. Have a good day.